Hello there, my name is Floor Galaxy, but you can call me Floor. Today, I'll be giving you guys my smartphone collection update as of June 2024. As you can see, it's a pretty large update from last time, and that's why I wanted to keep it delayed by a few months, since nowadays it will take longer for new updates to actually be big enough to make a significant change in the way that I present my smartphone collection. Anyways, because it's June, I have to tell you guys something. Happy Pride Month, everyone. I hope you guys are all feeling great and safe in your homes or anywhere else. Alright, now that that's settled, we can get started with the video. So, as I said, in my last phone collection, with this sort of rule, this sort of rule set, the phones that I'll be counting as smartphones are the ones running Windows Phone, Windows Mobile, iOS, Android, and that one phone here that's running Bada OS, because there's no other phone here running any other weird software, if you will. So, let's get started. First up is this HTC Wildfire S. It is still my smallest phone, and it still doesn't work. Next, we have the HTC HD Mini. It fully works, it has a really solid battery, and it actually looks really cool on the inside. It is a very nice yellow color. The battery might be dead. I did not see this coming. Anyways, I guess I can show you guys the yellow back that I was talking about. And here it is, as I said, looks really cool. Especially that transparent bit at the bottom. And apologies for any crappy camera quality. The sunlight is so bright right now that I had to pull the... Oh, curtains, yeah. I had to pull the curtains just to make sure that it's not completely blinding me, but it might still blind the camera, so apologies if any part of this video doesn't look as good as it should be. And anyway, next we have an HTC Touch Diamond. Wait, no, that's not a Touch Diamond. So I looked up the model yesterday, and it is indeed an HTC Touch Dual. There is no alternative naming for it. It's just the HTC Touch Dual, and it also doesn't exactly work. Both of these two show signs of life when they're on the charger. However, neither of them power on, so there are definitely some issues with both. Next, we have the Samsung Wave Y Young, and this is the phone that I made the exception to begin with for. So this thing is running Bada OS. I have no idea which version it is. However, one thing that I do know is that it is locked with a passcode, which is the reason why I haven't been using it nearly as much as I typically would a phone like this. And unfortunately, this kind of streak doesn't end here. Next, we have the Samsung Galaxy Pocket 2. It doesn't have the exact same problem, but it still has a problem. So this thing appears to power on, however, it has a boot looping problem. It just stays on this screen, and it doesn't really do anything beyond that. Which is unfortunate, but at least you can see something on the screen, so we know that one's good. The screen, not the phone. Next, we have a E10 Glowfish X650, which, as you can see, has a terrible battery. I tried to charge it right now before filming, and it's still barely charged. So this thing takes a lot of time to charge, and the battery drains extremely quickly. So while this does work, it certainly needs a new battery. This is really bad. Next, we have the LG KS20. I think this is the very first one where I can actually tell the operating system. Wait, no, this one as well. Both of these two are running Windows Mobile 6.1. Is this also dead? Oh yeah, I forgot to charge these two. Yeah, the other ones I didn't forget to charge, but it was specifically these two that I did forget about. So, sorry about that, but I did turn both of these two on in my previous phone collection video, so you likely already know how these two sound when they're booting up. Next we have the HTC Herald, which you might have not exactly seen how it boots up. No, I did show it in the last video as well. This thing actually has a really solid battery since it has been sitting here for a few months, and it's still going, which I find really surprising, but in a good way. Same goes for a few of the other phones that we'll see here. Since I haven't been filming for a few months with a couple of these, I haven't been using them at all, and this is definitely one of them. So, while this is running low on battery, the fact that it is at all charged is very surprising in a pleasant way. Oh yeah, this sound, by the way, that's really cool. Also, look at this. That is really cool. It's unfortunate that the touchscreen doesn't work, though. I think I already said that, but just in case I didn't, the touchscreen doesn't work on this. That's the problem with it. Next, we have the HTC Tattoo. This is running Android 1.6, one of the earliest versions of Android that I have. And it's only this and another phone that have this version of Android at all. This fully works, there are no problems with it, and it's actually in a really cool, really comfortable rubber case. Here is the real design on the back. It's really cool with the Android in the gradient. Oh yeah, and I don't think I showed the LG KS20's real back. But this might, oh no, it's not a pain at all. Here it is. Here is the real design of the phone without any casing on. Anyways, let's get to the next one. So next is the Samsung Galaxy Young in what I believe is a bluish color, bluish gray. This phone is running Android 4.1.2, so yes, I know we're jumping Android versions quite a lot. Expect to see that with a lot of the smaller phones on here, and probably a few of the bigger phones too, but mostly the smaller ones. So this thing, it does work, but it has a broken touchscreen, and the battery doesn't charge properly, and the charging port is broken. So it does have a lot of issues, but I did see it power on, and I could somewhat use it, at least enough to be able to tell it's Android version. Next up, we have the Galaxy Geo. This is running Android 2.2. It has no battery, but it also has a broken LCD, which is why I couldn't do much more with that one either. Up next is this LG Optimus Net. This is running Android 2.3.4, which is easily one of the weirdest Android versions that I've seen. It does fully work. Next up is the Sony Xperia E, which, funny story, I actually completely forgot about in my last phone collection. I actually got this thing, I think, about a year ago at this point. No, it wasn't a year ago. Was it a year ago? Yeah, it was a year ago. Damn, time flies fast. Anyways, this thing fully works. It's running Android 4.1.2, and believe it or not, I can actually not only download Google Play on it, but completely download some, I would say, fairly recent apps too. Two more stories about this one, because this thing is full of stories. That's why I was so sad that I completely forgot about it in my last phone collection video. So the second story is that someone left a whole bunch of files on this thing, including an entire music playlist and an entire collection of their photos. Obviously, I'm not revealing either, because that would be just a jerk thing to do, as I explained with another Sony phone that we're getting to soon. But it was pretty funny to find, and I did delete the photos very quickly afterwards. And yeah, this thing is pretty cool. As I said, another story is that I actually forgot it at my grandparents' place for, I think, a few months. and nearly a year until I got it back home here. And because it's running a randomized Google account, which is something that a couple of other phones also run, it is able to safely download any app without getting my main email account hacked. So that's pretty cool. I have a few other phones like this, and I will bring them up soon. But until then, this one is the oldest one in Android version, but the newest one in date edition in the collection. No, it's not the newest in that one either, but it is like the second newest. I went on for a long time about that one, but that's because I genuinely find it intriguing how this tiny thing had so much backstory behind it. Next up is this Acer E130. This one's really cool for an entirely different reason. I don't have any stories with this at all, but I do have to mention just how interesting this whole phone is. The way that it works, the way that it has a touchscreen and a usable scroll wall and a really comfortable keyboard that surprisingly didn't decompose after 15 years of this phone being released is amazing. This thing is running Android 1.6, making it the tied oldest Android phone that I own, alongside the HTC Tattoo. I promise this thing works, it's just glitching out right now. Anyways, next LG phone is the LG Optimus Chic. This is running Android 2.2. It has a really long-lasting battery, and it fully works. A cool thing about it is that it can actually sell for more than the entire phone lot I got it for. Got it from. So, yeah. This thing will forever gain credits in my heart. This thing won't. This is a yuppie phone. I found out that it was a phone for children. It's running Android 4.4.2, and I don't know. It's just not great. It doesn't work at all. The battery was incredibly bloated, so I assumed that putting a new battery in this would definitely not be the wisest decision either. Next, we have a Samsung Omnia. This thing is running Windows Mobile 7, I think. This does work, but its battery is completely dead. I tested it with a new battery, and it did work, but I can't use that one as it is too small. I don't understand what is up with the color contrast on this camera. It might have to do with the curtain being in the way, which really sucks, but as I said, the sunlight was blinding, so I kind of have to use it. Anyways, next phone is the Samsung Galaxy Ace. This thing is running Android 2.3.5. It doesn't boot up right now, but honestly, I am more grateful that it does not, because this thing has a bloated battery, and I don't really want to see this thing booting up anymore. I did already showcase it enough times that it does indeed work, but the battery is swollen, and not only that, but it also swells other batteries. When I tried to put two separate batteries in in this phone, and both of them got swollen after they were put in for like 5 seconds. That's how long it took for this thing to immediately just kill them. Including, one of the batteries was on this Galaxy Young, so that really sucked for me. That's why that battery is now unusable. Next we have the iMob knockoff Sony Xperia 10. This does work, but I assume the charging port is broken because there is no other way that I can possibly see why it wouldn't work. It did work initially, but it completely stopped showing anything. Also, this thing is ripping off everything, I just noticed, because it also has the Express Music logo when that was distributed to Nokia, And then it has the design of the Sony Xperia X10. Next we have a whole bunch of phones that look very similar but are not the exact same. So we have, first up, this S3 Mini. This is just a shell. It doesn't work, it doesn't run anything, but it is aesthetically pleasing. Next up we have this S3 Mini. This is running Android 4.1.2. It does work. It just has it's just running low on battery. Next up is this other S3 Mini. This also works. So, fun fact, these two were from the exact same lot, and this one used to have a defective Wi-Fi, but I did fix it by swapping out the boards, and not only that, but I also cleaned up the board inside of this or this, I don't know. But I did clean up the board. Now both of them are fully working phones. Next up we have the Samsung Galaxy Trend. It sadly does not work. It also boot loops, but it boot loops in an even uglier way where it just keeps on vibrating for no good reason. Next we have the Samsung Galaxy S Duos. This is running Android 4.0.4, and this is going to be the very first one of ones that we'll see on this list with the Android 4.0 point something, keeping it back from its full potential. It's not nearly old enough to be considered antique, but it's also not new enough to run anything, which I personally find very depressing, but at least this thing does work as a phone. So you can make text, phone calls, I suppose, but yeah, you're not getting much value out of this, unfortunately. Next up we have the Samsung Galaxy S Duos 2, which thankfully is running Android 4.2.2, which means that it does have the capability to actually download things. So this thing has 8 GB of storage, and I think this is the very first, 4 GB of storage, and I think this is the first time where it's actually worth mentioning something like this, simply because it can actually use the storage. If I really wanted to mention it on a couple of other phones where I can tell the storage though, this S Duos also has 4 GB of storage, but it can't really use any of them because, as I said, Google Play doesn't work on it. Google Play does work on this, and so does the rest of the internet, so that's good. Next is the Motorola Droid 1. I did not bother charging this. I don't know why, honestly. I guess I just really didn't like this phone for some reason. Anyways, it does work, but some of the touchscreen is a little bit chaotic. It doesn't always work like it's supposed to. And also, the other issue is that this thing is incredibly sticky. So what I mentioned with the rubber disintegrating in like the next decade is somewhere along these lines, I'd say. And a lot of the phones on here are actually dying relatively quickly. Just goes to show how many phones I had to actually set up, and just how tiring the entire setup was. Both on me, and apparently also on the phones. Next was another phone with a very bad, no, not very bad, but very low battery as of right now. This is a Nokia Lumia 530. 520? 530? I don't know. I think it's a 530. Yeah, it's a 530. This does work, but it is locked to orange. This is the first one that's actually locked, I think. Yeah, it is. Actually, no, the Sony Xperia E is locked to Vodafone. So, that's the thing. Next up, we have the Galaxy S Plus. This would work if it actually had a good battery inside. Oh, wait! Wait, it does! It suddenly works again. What the? Okay. I suppose it just needed a little rest. That's cool. This is running under 2.3.5, and I am surprised that this thing still works. I put this thing through so much trouble. So I had this thing when I was 7 or 8, and it would just constantly be subjected to the worst treatment possible. It got put in sand. I let it slide down I think, yeah, it's just called a slide. I let it slide down there, and somehow this thing still works after that experience. That slide was extremely long, and, well, no, it's not very long for a kid, but typically you don't put a phone on a slide. I did mess with it in the playground a lot, as basically everything about this could tell you. Anyway, next we have two phones that both have similar problems, and that is that they're both completely useless. So, we have the LG Optimus Soul and the LG Optimus L5. They're both running Android 4.0 point something. This is running Android 4.0.3. This one is running an unknown version of Android. And that's because this thing is boot looping as well. This one isn't, but since it's running 4.0.3, it's basically useless. For reasons as I already mentioned with the Galaxy S Duos. Next up we have the HP iPAQ. I'm not going to try to look up that name since I already did once and I forgot about it. And considering that this took me a day and a half to set up, I would much rather not search up the name again, since this was already a lot of effort. As you can see, it's not working at all. The HP iPAQ is untested. Now let's get into three phones of the exact same model. So I actually used to have one of these. It wasn't the exact one that you see here, but it was the same model and the same color. So these three are all Allview A5 smileys. None of them have a battery. None of them do anything when put on the charger. So it's likely that none of the three actually work. Plus, the one phone that had a battery had a completely disintegrating battery. Not even just swollen, disintegrating. That was terrifying. I quickly got rid of that battery. So, I am safe, but these phones aren't. As I said, the thing that I used that one for, since that one also didn't work, I did a 23 ways to break it. And for some reason, I never uploaded the video, so that thing is completely gone for basically no one to see. That's kind of the worst fate a phone could have, not gonna lie. Next, we have the Sony Xperia Neo L. Why did I even do this? So, the reason why I typically don't want to boot something like this up is because this phone has a broken touchscreen, and this reveals some very private information. So as a result, I will put it down like this. And what did I just say about this thing with private information, private photos, and private music lists and things like that that really should not be revealed to the world? Yeah, this thing has them as well, except that I was unable to clean any of this up because the touchscreen is completely gone. Anyways, up next we have the Samsung Galaxy Ace Style. Finally, I can actually boot it up for you. This thing works, it's running Android 4.4.4, but unfortunately, the Google Play Store does not work for some reason. I still don't understand why, because it was doing just fine. It even let me log into my Google account, so I genuinely don't understand. So I'm currently checking something. I'm currently checking... Yeah, okay, so the phone is turned off, so I can show it safely here. I just don't want to reveal anyone's private information because, again, not only would that be incredibly mean, but it could genuinely cause real harm. So, next up we have the Samsung Omni S7. This is running, well, obviously Windows Mobile 7. Oh, this thing was running Windows Mobile 6.1, my bad. So this is running Windows Phone 7.8, and it does work, but it does not have a battery. Next up, we have this HTC. I think it's an HTC Droid or an Incredible, or oh, it's an HTC Desire HD. That's what it was. Yeah, this thing does not work at all. It does have a battery. I tried to touch it to see if it has a battery. It does have a battery. However, it really doesn't do anything on the charger. It is completely cold. It means that it does not work at all. This is completely bricked. Now, thankfully, we can actually witness a phone booting up. And this is the ZTE Blade A410. There are actually two of them here, but one of them is running low on battery, so it probably won't power on. Yep, it will not. Both of these are running Android 5.1, they're both locked at orange, and the problem with this one, despite the fact that it is in arguably better condition, don't mind the scratches, it's just screen protector damage, is the fact that this is unable to connect to any sources of Wi-Fi, any of them at all. It is unable to connect to Wi-Fi, period. This one works perfectly fine. It is very slow and very laggy and doesn't have a great battery either, but at least it works. Next up we have the Nokia 820, which actually does work. It has great battery. It has it's running pretty fast, and it's running Windows Phone 8.1. Now, why did I pardon myself here and say Windows Phone instead of Windows Mobile? That's because these two are different operating systems. Plus, Windows Mobile and Windows Phone overlap on version 7. So to clear up some confusion, I decided to just refer to them separately as Windows Phone and Windows Mobile, just in case one of them is running Windows Phone 7 and the other one's running Windows Mobile 7. Next, we have the iPhone SE running an unknown iOS version. The only thing that I do know about this is that this thing has a somehow working LCD, but the rest of it is gone. Because the battery will charge, but it doesn't show anything on. It does show the Apple logo on the screen, and it doesn't do much afterwards. It is really, really gone. It only shows the Apple logo. Then everything just degenerates. Degenerates on the screen. That was the wrong pronunciation. I'm sorry. And yes. It basically just forms a whole bunch of squares and white lines, and it's really uncomfortable to watch. And yeah, I decided not to charge this thing because this is also filthy inside. It has a ton of sand and a lot of gunk hidden in both of the camera orifices. I don't understand why specifically there. Next, we have the U-Talk. I don't even know what it is. It works, but the power button is broken. Next up we have the Allview A5 Easy, which, believe it or not, has the exact same issue. Fully works, but the power button is also broken. Next up we have the Sony Xperia Arc S, which used to be a rare phone where I live, but suddenly it's gotten extremely common to the point that it is now being sold for about $30, which I find so weird. It used to be $300, and it's gone so cheap so suddenly. If anyone knows why that is, let me know in the comments, because I'm legitimately confused. Also, if you don't mind, don't reveal which country I live in, because if you do, I will delete your comment. Alright, thank you. Let's move on to the next phone. We have the base. I don't know what that one's called, but I know that the thing is based off of is the ZTE Skate 2. It does work. Both of these are running Android. This one's 2.3.5, this one's 2.3.6. They're both completely useless as anything other than the fact that these are really cool collectibles. Well, really just the Arc S. The ZTE Skate really isn't that cool of a collectible in my opinion. Anyways, next we have an Allview A5 quad. This thing boot loops. I don't know what Android version it's running, and it doesn't really matter. Oh, by the way, since it matters here, both of these two have 8 GB of storage. I don't know how much this one has. I think it also has 8. Next up, we have the second Allview A5 quad, which sort of works. The only good thing about this, though, practically, is the fact that it has a smoother animation screen than another Allview phone that we'll look at soon. As you can see, this is actually really smooth. However, this thing has a setup problem, because it does appear to work, but then you try to actually set it up, and then you have to skip the SIM card part, and then just doesn't let you move from here. It's stuck on the Google and location bit of the setup, and I don't understand why it is like this, but it is. And it really sucks that it is like that, because I'm sure that it would have at least had a cool wallpaper. Alright, next phone is the Nokia Lumia 635. It does work. It's on O2. I think it has a dead battery. Yeah, the battery is not currently charged. Sorry for the interruption, I had to take a quick break. Anyways, now we're back, and I'm going to present to you guys 3 Galaxy J1s all at the same time. So, let's get started with it. The first J1 does work, but wait, no, it does not work. I wanted to show off this case because this is the case that this phone came with, but it actually caused issues on this phone, so I decided to put it here, just so that this phone will have some sort of covering. It does not have a back cover, and this back cover in this case doubles as a back cover for it. It doesn't have a battery, but I really don't want to put a battery in this because the last one has bloated. Anyways, it does have the boot looping problem as well. Next up, we have this Galaxy J1 in white. It's unlocked, it's running Android 4.4.4. It does work except for the fact that it has the, I believe, exact same issue as the Ace style. Yeah. I find that very unfortunate, but at least it does work. And then we have this Galaxy J1. This is running Android 4.4.4 as well, but this is on T-Mobile. And another thing, this is the second phone on this list that actually has the weird quirky accounts on it that are anonymous and completely disguisable from the public. This is the newest phone out of them that out of the ones that can do this in terms of Android version, but it's the oldest one in terms of when I actually got it, which I think is pretty nuts. Next up, we have this Galaxy A3, which does sort of work, except the touchscreen is broken, which I find very unfortunate since the rest of it is completely flawless. I mean, never mind. Besides these dings on the front specifically, it is completely flawless. It really sucks that it's like this. Next up, we have the LG K4, which completely works. This is running Android 5.1.1. Oh yeah, this is also on 3. I did not know that 3 was actually a thing in Italy, but apparently it is. And I think that's pretty interesting. Now we are breaking the streak of working in good phones, and we're back into the weird ones. So this is an HTC Desire, what was it called? A Desire 310, and this thing does not work at all. You can see it booting up right here, but it is boot looping. It stays on this screen. Next up we have the LG Optimus 4X. This is running Android 4.0.3. It does work, except for the touchscreen at the very bottom. The power button is also a bit skewed for some reason. I don't understand why. I think maybe it broke down in the box, which is probably the weirdest thing to happen to a phone. Next up we have these two. Actually, no, I completely regret saying that is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to a phone. Because these two have had their motherboards swapped, but they're kind of different phones entirely. So, this is a Galaxy S3 Neo with a Galaxy S3 board in it. And this is a Galaxy S3 with a Galaxy S3 Neo board put in it. And the reason why I did that is because the S3 Neo is a more recent phone, so I assumed that it would have like good Google Play services, and I think it does. The only problem though is that not only is this like completely broken, but also this one is this one's not booting up anymore because the power button got jammed. So they are both currently in this limbo state where they technically have working parts, but you can't really use any of them. Next up we have this Allview V1 Viper, and this is the very last one of the trio of phones that have random quirky email accounts, so I can just download any app safely without getting my main account hacked. So the thing is, I actually didn't do this on purpose. I didn't really try to give either of these three a quirky role, but I genuinely thought that it would be just impossible to sign in on a regular account like I tried to do with the S-Duos. So I thought that this is just how it is, but it wasn't really. I actually got these phones after the S-Duos, all of them. So finding that out was surprising. Also, this is a very cool transparent phone. Like, a lot of it is transparent or translucent, whatever. It is pretty cool. It's a really cool phone in my opinion. It is running Android 4.2.1, which is a very unique version of Android. And this thing has, I think, 8 gigabytes to start. No, this one has 4 gigs. And I don't know how much this one has, but I could have looked at it. Oh, that is insane. This thing is actually a 16 gigabyte model. I just looked it up. That is nuts. And it's so sad that I can't use any of the 16 gigs. Fun fact, these two S3s are also 16 gigabyte models, which makes it even more disappointing that I can't use either of these three for storage. Anyways, while this thing keeps boot looping, let's move on to the next phone that also doesn't work. This is a Samsung Galaxy J2. The screen cracking was my fault. I did try to fix this, but it was the first and only fixing attempt that actually failed and actually made the phone worse. There is another attempt that well, there was another attempt when sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. There was another phone that I tried to fix, but I failed, but I didn't actively make that one worse. So that one is different, but we'll get to it later. Next up, we have this Galaxy S4 that I'm surprised turns on at all. Look at all of this beautiful corrosion in there. This thing, actually, surprisingly, fully works despite the AMOLED, not only the AMOLED being the one working. I thought that I could maybe replace this board with this board because this phone also has a broken AMOLED. Unlike this one though, which I know is on T-Mobile, this one I know is unlocked. This one's just running Android 5.1.1 and it has 16 gigabytes of storage. But another thing that I do know is also that it has a broken AMOLED. This one is another S4. This one's also 16 gigabyte. This one is running Android 5.0.1. And it fully works. This one is the Black Edition, so you will notice the Black Edition sound playing. Next up is this Galaxy S4X. Apologies for all the interruptions, but I did kind of need this since my camera, the current camera phone that I have, is not currently doing the best. It has run out of storage and I'm trying to clear up the storage right now, so I'm filming on a different phone. However, since it is not mine, I will not bring it up in the phone collection. And I might just sneakily add in my camera phone, aka my main phone, into the phone collection. Be right back. Alright, I am back. You will probably notice that phones sooner or later in the collection. Most likely later, since it is pretty big. Anyways, next up is this Microsoft Lumia 735. It is not a Nokia despite the Lumia name. This is running an unknown version of Windows Mobile simply because of the fact that it does not work. I tried putting a good battery into this thing, and yes, it looks like a disaster, but if you peel off this honestly really gross back cover, it does look fine. But it is not fine, it does not work at all. Next up we have the Qbot 1S, which honestly surprises me that 1, it exists, and 2, boot loops. Like, yeah, it's not a good phone, I didn't expect it to function well, I just expected it to function. Yeah, it completely stops working from here, which is really unfortunate. I mean, I'm not missing out on much, but it still sucks. Next up we have 2 Sony Xperia Zs. This one works. Both of these have broken touchscreens. This one has a broken charging port. This one's running Android 4 point something. This is running Android 5.1.1. They both have functioning motherboards. This one has a broken charging port and touchscreen. This one has a broken touchscreen only. And we have even more phones that don't really work. We have this Huawei P8 Lite. Not only does this not work, but just like the S3 Mini, it's literally just a shell. And unlike the S3 Mini, it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, so I don't really have much of a reason to keep this. Why do I still have this around at all? Anyways, next we have this LG K8, and it sort of works, except for the notable little fact that it has a corrupted motherboard. Yes, somehow the display works on this thing, but the motherboard is completely corrupted in a way that it just doesn't do anything. And I don't understand it. I tried to fix it, by the way. It does not do that. The fix does nothing for it. I don't... actually, I do understand, because there could be an issue with a micro USB port where it only works with charging, but it's really bad with data. Or alternatively, it just boots up too fast. Next, we have this 2017 Galaxy J3. This fully works. It is running Android 7.0 and it has 16 GB of storage. Next up we have this Huawei Y6 2015. It also fully works. It is running Android 5.1.1. It also has 16 GB of storage, I think. Next we have this Allview P6 Plus. It's really unfortunate because this one does not work. But it also has no good parts, which makes it even more depressing. It might be completely gone. It might just be a shell, except it's also kind of useless, kind of like the Huawei P8 Lite, but I suppose slightly more useful just because it actually looks good. But it's useless because no one would actually need a shell for it. Next up we have the Nokia 3, which obviously I can tell what's wrong with it. It doesn't have a battery for 1, and 2, it is very corroded inside. This does not work, obviously, but the display does look good, which is also what makes it so unfortunate that it's broken. Next up we have a Huawei Ascend G700, and believe it or not, this thing does work. It does not have a battery though, so can't show the bit of screen. Next we have 2 Galaxy J5s. They're both running Android 6.0.1. and they are both similar in many ways, but they're also different in one very notable way. Actually, two very notable ways. First up, this J5 is more stable. The one that's not cracked, that is. The second thing is that this J5 has a micro SD card, meanwhile, this other J5 does not. I don't know why I didn't even bother to swap around the cards. Next up, we have two Galaxy A5s, and these are actually different in many tangible ways. This one is running Android 7.0, and it does work fully. It's very fast, and it has no cracks. It's in mint condition. The screen protector, though, has some cracks. Next up is this other Galaxy A5 2016. This one is very cracked. This one is running Android 7.1.1, so more recent. However, it is Samsung account locked, and also, far more importantly, it's also very slow. By Samsung account locked, I don't mean that I can't use it. I absolutely can. It's just that someone else will be watching me while I do so, which is extremely uncomfortable. Next up, we have a Huawei Y5 2018. It works perfectly fine, except for the fact that it is extremely laggy and the speaker is absolutely terrible. Next up, we have this other Galaxy J5. This is the 2017 model. It works except for the AMOLED. Next up, we have this Huawei P10 Lite, which doesn't work, but it also showed signs of life, surprisingly. So that's why I'm keeping it. I might test it later. Next up, we have an LG G3. This does work. Actually got it very recently. It is running Android 4.4.2, and again, I thought that this would be good, but it still has the same problem as this J1 and this Ace Style. This one has a problem with the Google Play Store, and I still don't understand why. Next up, we have a Mobistel, and I think it's the Mobistel Sinus C5. And weird name aside, this thing does not work at all, and it has tried to injure me too, so I'm upset with it personally. Next up, we have a Doogee, which has a very, very disintegrated battery. Somehow works. No, it doesn't. I completely forgot I was about to say, oh, somehow it works. No, it doesn't. It's just in good condition. Somehow. The battery's disintegrated, so I think I might get rid of it soon. But it doesn't work with a new battery, just in case you were. It doesn't work with a new battery, just in case you're wondering. Also, sorry for the sudden interruption. I accidentally closed the app, the camera app, to be specific. Next up, we have the LG G4, which fully works. It is running Android 7.0, and other than the unstable battery, which is an issue, this does fully work. And yes, you will see a boot looping. This is just a result of the battery running low. I've received this comment so many times on my January 2024 update of my phone collection, where people have constantly asked me, what is this thing boot loop? Why do you say it works? It clearly doesn't work. It does work. It's just that it is doing terribly with its battery at 0%, and I could not charge it quickly enough for this video. Next up, we have two Allview P6 Lifes, but they are pretty different. So let's get started with the first one. This one is running Android 4.4.2, and it has a broken touchscreen, which is incredibly unfortunate. Next, we have this other one. This is an Allview P6 Life running Android 5.1.1, and this one fully works. I don't really understand why this one wouldn't work while this one would, since they're both cracked. But whatever, I suppose. Oh, I also just noticed this one is like blue a bluish tint of black, and this one's just completely black. Next phone, oh boy, I've been waiting to boot this one up for a while. This is a Galaxy A20e. This is running potentially Android 11. It has a broken LCD, but oh my gosh, I've been waiting to boot this thing up for so long since I completely forgot to charge it for the January 2024 collection, so I'm really glad that I did it this time. Next up, we have 4 HTC One M8s, which have absolutely no good reason to be described through any more thoroughly other than none of these freaking work. So these two are gold, these two are gray, all of them suck. I don't like any of them, besides maybe this one because it looks good, but none of them have actually worked. This one showed no signs of life, these three did, but for no good reason. This HTC One M9 also showed signs of life, and it actually looks to be in pretty good condition, which is why I tried to swap out the parts from this one to this one, but I kind of gave up halfway. I don't understand why. I will try it again soon, and I would actually just keep this one up, right? What was it called? I would just keep this one. I would just keep this one directly if it actually worked. This does not work though, but it did show signs of life at least. Next up, we have my working 1M9. This is on Verizon, an American carrier. Surprising considering that I don't live in America. This does work completely, except that it has an also very unstable battery. It doesn't cause it to boot loop, but it certainly isn't pleasant. It is running Android 7.0 as well. Wait, no, this one's running a 6.0. I just realized. Anyways. You can see the boot up screen right now. It is beautiful. Next up, we have the Allview V2 Viper S. This works, but the power button's defective. Next up, oh, there we go. That's the one I was waiting for. I was waiting for these phones to come up. So the first one in the lineup is a Motorola G5S. This fully works. I have repaired it personally, and I feel really proud of it. So this thing fully works. It is running Android 8.0, and it is in a beautiful gold color. And it's also a pretty rare phone too. That is, in my opinion, a very amazing deal to have. This phone itself is more expensive than the entire lot yet again. And heck, it's more expensive than the lot and the screen that I replaced it with. Which is insane, it's nuts. And I find it so cool. This also has a beautiful UI. Next up we have the Redmi 6 Pro, which is shattered, but somehow still works. Yes, it has a broken LCD as well, but I can actually see what I'm working with here, which is extremely surprising. Usually you aren't able to see anything, but this is completely visible for me. It's in a rose gold color, which is much better seen like this, and I think it looks beautiful. Next we have Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, and just like the other duplicates, they're not actually duplicates since they are different. This thing has horrible AMOLED burn-in and a, I suppose, somewhat unstable battery. Either way, that's not the main issue. The main issue is the AMOLED burn-in. It definitely needs fixing there. But otherwise, it does fully work. Next up is this other S7 Edge. So this thing is running Android 8.0.1. This one is running Android 8.0.0. This one works perfectly. It has no cracks, no damage, and no AMOLED burn-in. That is fantastic. Also, I got this one in a box, and which one? The Optimus 4X in a box. So that's why I forgot about both of these last time. Next we have Samsung Galaxy J6. This thing is running Android 10. Oh my gosh, I just realized I forgot to bring the amount of storage up. This has 32 gigabytes of storage. It works perfectly, and it is one of my favorite phones because it is so shattered, it is so new, and it works perfectly fine despite all of this. By the way, 32 gigs, 16 gigs, 16 gigs, no, so 32, 32, 32, 4, no, 8, 8, 32, 16, 16, 16, 8, 8, 16, and yeah, I think that's all the ones that I forgot about. And anyways, next we have two Note 2s that are again distinct. This is a disaster, it does not work, but it had a working motherboard in it somehow. The AMOLED obviously doesn't work, which is why I swapped it out to begin with. Otherwise, I would have had yet another favorite phone that is absolutely shattered, but somehow still works anyway. Next up is why I brought a specific tool to begin with. This is the other Galaxy Note 2, but it has a jammed power button. Alright, now I found the tool. It is right here. And we're gonna power on the Note 2 with it. It's gonna look a little clunky, but it'll be alright. And there we go. I'm gonna leave the tool to the side, and I'm gonna showcase how this works. So, this is running Android 4.4.2. It has a working Google Play, it has a working TikTok, it has a working YouTube, and it's basically everything. It's basically everything you would want in a newer phone. I mean, except for Discord, but some people may not want Discord. I mean, some people may not want TikTok either, but yeah, at least it has one other social media besides just YouTube, which I think is really cool for such an old phone. And plus, it is giant and has huge bezels, so nothing really, so the screen doesn't really get ruined in terms of viewing angles and viewing process, since it is an OLED screen as well. I find everything about this phone just incredibly cool. Next up we have this Alcatel Pop. I've been informed by a viewer that this is the Pop 5.5 inch 4th generation, and I don't know if it shows exactly, but it does not work. It is a really terrible one. And next I have a Galaxy J7 2015 that also does not work at all. I thought the issue might just be the AMOLED at first, but then I actually got a battery in it and it does not work at all. It shows no signs of life. And same might go for this other J7 2017, but I'm not exactly sure just yet. It did not show any signs of life though, so I have a hard time believing that this actually works at all, even though it doesn't have a screen and it could just be that. It would at least vibrate usually, so I'm not sure. Next we have the Huawei Y6 2018, and that one fully works. It is running Android 8.0, it has 16 gigabytes of storage, just like this one, and it's a pretty decent phone. Now moving on to this ladder of phones, if you will. It's a vertical line of phones. So here we are. First up we have the Miria Grand 9000 apostrophe. This is easily, no wait, it's a Grand apostrophe 9000, which is the stupidest name that I heard. I thought it was just the Miria Grand, but no, it just had to be something so stupid. I don't understand it. I don't understand the naming, and I don't understand how the display is fine, even though the battery has been completely bulging on it, and that is, by the way, the reason why the outer screen cracked to begin with. And yeah, the rest of the phone doesn't really work either. The board is broken too. So the fact that the display is the only thing that stayed working is amazing and terrifying. Next up we have the LG Stylus 2, which also has a functional display for some wild reason, and also has a dysfunctional battery, except this one isn't bloated, it just isn't considered official. This might be a software issue, but it does work otherwise. Next up we have the Ulefone. I still don't remember the model of this one. This one actually does work. It has a broken LCD, Finally, one of these phones that is huge with a cracked screen that is actually like cracked. The LCD does not work, but the rest of this phone does, surprisingly, including the touchscreen. It is running Android 4.4.2 last time I checked. Next up we have this Blackview. I think it's a Blackview A60, and this one does not work at all. It doesn't even have a battery, so I could maybe test it. Next up we have a Huawei Y6 2019. It fully works. This is running Android 9.0, and it has 32 gigabytes of storage, which I think is incredibly cool. Next, we have the HTC One E9 Plus, aka the giant oldest phone that I have. This is running Android 5.0.2, which I know is not that old, but compared to the rest of these, it is pretty old. By the way, the LG Stylus is running Android 5.0.2 as well, I think, so they're pretty similar. But yeah, this one's running Android 5.0.2, and it has 32 gigabytes of storage, which is actually really good. And as I said, similar to the Note 2, the viewing experience on it, like watching YouTube videos and stuff, is actually really good. It's just really sucky in other ways, such as battery stability, which is why I didn't use it instead of the Note 2, since it is a newer phone. Next, we have a Galaxy A50, and this one absolutely pains me to say, but it does not work at all. Despite the fact that it actually has a functional display, the rest of it is not functional. Finally, breaking away from the depressing news, we have the Samsung Galaxy M11. This is running Android 12. It has 32 gigabytes of storage, and it works perfectly fine. By the way, I remember the data about this thing. It had Android 10, and it had 64 gigabytes of storage. It doesn't have either of these anymore, since it does not work at all. It is water damaged, unfortunately. But this one fully works despite the shattered screen. And I got this and this from the same person, which is not very surprising considering that they, one, managed to crack both of these to bits and managed to make them somehow still work, and two, they managed to make both of these two have LCD burns, which is something that I have never seen on a phone until these two, and I've never seen one after these two either. Next up we have my Redmi 9A. I got it from the scam phone lot, so obviously it's not great. It does heat up, it shows signs of life, but it doesn't power on, which is unfortunate since it looks to be in really good condition. Now it's time for my main phone finally making an appearance. This is my Xiaomi 11T Pro. I have used it for 2 years and it's still in brilliant condition. It works perfectly fine. It is running Android 13, and it has 128 gigabytes of storage. Pretty cool, right? And now the final one, surprisingly even bigger than the 11T Pro, is my Nokia X10 that I got very recently. Unfortunately, that also comes with its side effects, since it is that Nokia X10 I've gotten recently. It is cracked to bits, it does work, but it's running Android 13 and it is a Nokia. So that does mean that unfortunately it is Google locked and I can't do anything about it. It really sucks since this phone does seem to work otherwise, and it is a fantastic phone too. At least from my personal experience with it, the battery is amazing. I would have loved to use it as a secondary device, but I just couldn't. Anyways, now let's unlock all the phones that are working. Oh yeah, this one's dead. Oh, this thing has Google Play notifications. That's weird. Wait, this thing game battery? That's wild. Not revealing any personal information. These two are still stuck, the HTC and the Qbot, which ironically is a knockoff of an HTC phone. I did not know that the touchscreen stopped working on this one as well. As you can see, 16 gigabytes of storage on this thing. This thing still lasted for so long, it is absolutely impossible to even believe. Alright, and we're done. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!